Alright, it is finally February, so I'm going to go through all my stats for January. Now I know this isn't the most fun for everybody watching, however I am going to try this year to make this super fun because I don't know about you, but I actually quite enjoy seeing what other people are doing. So their monthly little wrap-ups of whatever it is they're interested in. I watch a lot of these where they're like just reading wrap-ups so they know which book that they read, how many stars they gave it, and I'm going to try and infuse some of that stat wisdom, goodness into these running updates from me. Obviously, I'm not the world's best runner ever, and so this is just a look at what my activity levels are like throughout the month. I'm not training for anything right now. There's no specific goal. So yeah, let's get on with it, shall we? So my monthly totals are as follows. I was active for about 28 hours and that was spread between running, walking, cycling, some stretching and some strengthening exercises, and doesn't include any work or any kind of wandering around with that, just things that I specifically was like, right, this is an activity I'm doing for myself. And within that 28 hours, I unsurprisingly spent most of that time running. Overall, I spent about 11 hours of running, a little bit less of cycling, even less walking, and then some strength and stretching were about 2 hours each, a little bit less for strengthening, I think. I can't remember which one. You'll know because it'll be up here anyway. There should be a lovely little chart that I've made up that you can see. And yeah, so that is that. It kind of feels like I should be doing a bit more running than that. But yeah, January was a strange one where I just wasn't really doing very many long runs or anything like that. And sometimes I wouldn't go to park on Saturday, I just wasn't feeling it. I skipped quite a lot of club runs. So I think overall in the coming months that should pick up, I want to say substantially, but I also don't because that would be a little bit scary, wouldn't it, if it suddenly doubles in February. But it will hopefully just gradually rise throughout the year. So that's a good little base. That's 10 hours. You know, that's about 2 hours of running a week if we say January is a 5-week month, which it was. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? 5 weeks. So yeah, that's not bad. 2 hours of running every week. Let's say that's 20k a week, which is, you know, pretty standard really, isn't it? Hey? That could have been made up of 4 runs a week. I don't think it was though. I think it was mainly just 3 runs a week. But we'll get to that in a second when I go through frequency. So for frequency, this is where you can see my lovely commutes because 70 activities in a month is a lot. It's a lot. It's quite a lot. Okay, that is over 2 a day, and I am taking rest days. So there are lots of days where there's nothing at all. So there are also other days where there's like 5 different activities, and so it looks a little bit crazy if I was to scroll through my little Strava feed. Thankfully I have it on private, so I only public some of the stuff. If not, everybody's feeds would be junked up with lots of rubbish that I just don't want to see. So yeah, 70 activities, 33 of them are cycling, which is again a lot. But if you think, whenever I go to work, I am cycling to a train station and then cycling back, so that's already 2. But that makes up quite a big chunk of it, really. Let's say I go to work 4 days a week, you know, that's already 8 activities a week. So that's already over 1 a day. So yeah, take that into account. So take this number with a little pinch of salt. Maybe eventually I'll work out how to take commutes out of this. But for the minute they're in there. And then strangely, I did the same amount of runs as I did walks. So I did 14 of each, which isn't bad. Obviously, my walks were a little bit shorter than my runs, because if not, the times would be virtually similar. But as you saw previously, there was a difference between them of about 4 hours. So I'm running 4 longer than I am walking, but they are still quite close in the amount of times I'm doing it. I think walks are just so easy to do at lunchtime, aren't they? You can just have your lunch, then have a little walk around, especially when it's not raining, which it hasn't been too bad. There has been the odd kind of wet weather walk where you just shove your coats on and just get a little bit done. But yeah, that's such an easy way to get some activity into your day. So if you're not doing that, give it a little try, even if it's just for 10 minutes. Hey, before you've gone to work, whilst you're at work on your lunch break, just a little bit of activity, try and get some sunshine in. It will feel better, especially if you're in winter and it is so gloomy. You can only get the sunshine at lunchtime if you're working from like 9 until 5. So do try and get some in. Okay, final graph that I've made for you today. There might be some more coming, but for now this is all I can mentally think about. And this is the distance. So I've taken out strength and stretch activities out of this graph, and this is literally just the activities that I record distance for. So that'll be runs, walks and cycles. For the cycles, I've included those commutes as well as some lovely virtual rides on this bike just behind me. So overall, 143 kilometres of cycling, both virtual and in the real world. 95.3 kilometres of running, which isn't quite my overall 100k goal, so we're a little bit behind on that for the year. And 48 kilometres walking. So it does add up, those little walks at lunchtime. You know, that's like a 50k. That's a lot. That's 30 miles. So yeah, 286 kilometres travelled throughout January, and that was from 31 days of activity. So not bad. Definitely not bad. Obviously, running, if you're running further, if you're running a marathon, you're going to get more distance anyway, but I'm not apologising for that distance. Yeah, it's just nice to see. So at the moment, about 50% of my distance is made up of cycling. And again, I would quite like to be doing more running and try and skew that a little bit more in running's favour, but it's going to be quite hard with all those commutes in, unless I suddenly decided, you know what, let's do a 5k every day. I don't think cycling's going to be beaten for the top dog at the moment in my life. So we're going to have to chill, let cycling take over. I'm not doing very many cycling workouts. They're all kind of just base things. So yeah, that's the stats portion of this wrap up done. So yeah, let's move on to some more fun things, shall we? So as I mentioned, I did 14 runs throughout January, and you know, it's so hard to think of a favourite at the moment. I think possibly just little runs where I went out. There was one run actually that I did all on my own. It wasn't kind of like my favourite because I did slightly hate it, but I'm going to include it as my favourite because it's possibly one of the only times this month that I actually ran on my own. I went out in the morning, I did about, I think it ended up being about 13k. It wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be because I was making the route up on as I went. Shoved in my headphones, put on some musicals and just did it. And it kind of reminds me that actually it's quite nice to get out on your own. At the moment I've been either running with my partner, running with the club, running at parkrun. There hasn't really been any kind of like solo runs. So I think thinking about adding some more of those in when I can would be great. But also it does kind of like check a box when you can also run with someone else, doesn't it? Because then you can also get kind of social factors ticked off at the same time instead of just running on your own. Especially because I do like workout stuff on my own. Yeah, it's always like you have to find another day to be able to like take yourself running. But I think that's something that I'm probably gonna have to think about, maybe incorporating a little bit more, not running with someone else, just myself, so I can actually see where I am at. Because there was I did a race this month where I was running on my own and I just couldn't do it. I kind of like started dropping back as walks. Like I did the video about how I was trying not to DNF. It was that one. I just was not in the right mind frame to be running on my own. And I just kind of think that I need a little bit more practice of running on my own at the moment. I feel like I've got out of the habit of spending running time solo. So yeah, I think that's something that I'll need to pick up at some point in order to actually compete in races. Because if not, it's kind of like this dead silence. You're trying to push yourself, you're also trying to talk yourself down, and there's so much going on in your head sometimes when you're running, and I think just practice. You need to practice it more. So yeah, that was favourite / worst run of the month, but we'll leave it at that. Races, then I just mentioned it, and I did the Oh My Obelisk 9-mile event over in Dawlish, and yeah, it was a nice race. Like, I think if I was in the right mindset, it would have been fab. You know, it was such nice weather. It was a little bit muddy, but not too bad. You run from kind of Dawlish Leisure Centre out along kind of like a housing estate around the back of it anyway, up through some woods finally, and then around, and then you come back through and down the path that you took on the out. And it was gorgeous. You had like quite a lot of views of Dawlish and like the countryside. Didn't see any sea, even though Dawlish is kind of near the sea. I don't think I saw any, or at least if I did, I wasn't noticing it. I was just like too busy in my like, head down, try and keep going because my feet were hurting. But yeah, it was, I think if I was to do it again, I would be more prepared for it to start with, and I would know that there is quite a lot of like narrow paths and stuff. So if you are running around people, there is quite a lot of this kind of thought where you have to keep going, because if not, you're going to slow down the person behind you. So just knowing that is a good thing for that race. It's not all the way like that, but there is quite a few patches where if you're kind of walking and not feeling the hill, it does feel like you're slowing everyone down. And I really hate that feeling. It kind of puts me off quite a lot, because I'm like, I have to keep going. And sometimes doing that, I just feel worse and worse and worse and worse. And then when I finally do get to stop and slow down, I kind of slow down for longer, because I'm like, oh, well, I did that bit earlier. I kind of deserve to slow down for longer now, which eventually will kind of catch up and be like, oh, well, actually, maybe I should just walk all of this. So it's getting that competitive spirit in a nicer way. There is also a half marathon if anyone ever wants to do it at the same time. So there's a 9-mile race and a half marathon race. And I think the half marathon race does go all the way up to this obelisk in Dawlish. We didn't quite make it in the 9 miles. Yeah, so that was the one race I did. I don't think there's any in the books for a little while now, so enjoy that one whilst you can. Right, I'm going to finish these wrap-ups with a quick fire round. So I've got 3 questions, quick answers. Let's go. Number 1 is, did I make my 100-kilometre goal for the month? The answer to that one today is no. Second question, did I do my 1 strength every week? Answer to that one is yes. So question number 3 goes along with that, and that is, did I do my 1 stretch every week? And the answer to that one is also yes. So those are the 3 questions that kind of relate to my overall running goals / activity goals for the year, kind of New Year's resolutions, if you may, / goals for the year. And yeah, so we've made progress in, well, we made progress in all of them. I'm 5k short for the first one, which isn't bad. We can make that up some other time, I promise. And then the other two are great. They're sorted, and we're going to keep continuing doing strength work and stretching work. Sometimes I was doing the stretch after a run, and other times I was doing it on a Sunday. Just depended how I was feeling. And yeah, just making it more of a habit and being more intentional with it is the plan. So yeah, that is my wrap up for February? It's not February. Well, it is, but that was January. So that was my wrap up for running and activities in January. If you've got anything to be proud of or that you're happy about this month, pop it down below and we can all celebrate together. But in the meantime, happy running!